We have already talked about some relationships between entries in Flex. We have talked about lexical relations that are relationships between words with a similar status. They're different words, but equal status. We've also talked about variants, where one is a dependent of the other. And variants might be used for things like dialect variants, or they could also be used for inflectional variants. There is yet a third relationship between entries. Sometimes two words are related because one is built out of the other somehow. It has a different meaning. It's related, but it is a different meaning. And so we really want to make it be its own entry, but somehow it's dependent. So this relationship is called a complex form. So, for example, if I look at the word analyze, one word that I can build out of analyze is analysis. So let's go over to the lexicon and let's see what we will do. Notice that the word analysis is not in the entry. So what I want to do is I want to tell it that it has a complex form. There's a field here where you can specify complex forms. Now, keep in mind, complex means that it's made up out of other entries that have an entry in the database. Okay, so complex is the one that's bigger, that's built up out of the other ones. So analyze is the simple one, and the complex form is built from it. So the three dots, when I click on that, when I click in it, I get the ellipsis, the three dots. When I click on that, then I get a choice to find the entry, and I want analysis. Now, there is a word that has that in the gloss, but this is not the one. If I were to select this, then this would get turned into a complex form of the other one, but that's not what I want. So select creates the link, but create creates a whole new entry. So I've typed the full word the way it's correctly spelled. I will click create because I want a new entry because it's not already in the database. And so it fills in the lexeme form, and here I can start filling in the gloss. And if I want, I can actually fill in the complex form type right here while I'm at it, and I might as well. So there are several types, and this one is a derivative. It's derived from it. But you can see that there's several different ways that words can be built out of others. These are the default types, and there is a way to create a custom one. For now, I will choose derivative. And it is helpful to choose it as you're creating the word. And I do know the part of speech. I can say that that's a noun. I will click create. Now, what it has done is it created the entry, but I'm still in the main entry in analyze. But it's filled in the complex form field with the word that I just created, and it has turned it into a sub-entry of the main one. And what that means is that it's indented under it. Sub-entry is a formatting description, and it is true that in lexicography, in printed dictionaries, often sub-entry is the term used to refer to this actual entry. But in Flex, we prefer to use complex form to refer to the actual entry, and sub-entry just to refer to the way that it's formatted. And the reason for that is that there are many different ways that it can be formatted, and sub-entry is only one of those ways. So if we want to go look at that entry, I can just click on that word in the preview, and that will take me over to that entry. And here you can see it's formatted as a minor entry. If you remember from our discussion of variants, a minor entry is something where we have the head word and basically just a reference to something else, and we don't have anything else about it. So none of the contents, the meaning, or the example sentence, or anything like that is here. So this is formatted as a minor entry. Now, when we worked with variants, sometimes we formatted a variant as a minor entry. In this case, we're formatting a complex form as a minor entry. So what does this look like in the whole dictionary preview altogether? Let's go look at the dictionary view. So we have the word analysis, and it's an abbreviated entry. It just says, I'm a derivative of analyze. Then we come to Analyze, and it has its own definition. And then under Analyze, we have the subentry, Analysis. And so this is where all the information is for analysis. Now later on, we will learn that there's different ways of organizing where you put the information. Some might want to put it here, some might want to put it there, or a little bit of each. And we'll get to that in a later lesson. But for now, we're going to focus on this one way of presenting it. So in this case, I was in the main entry, and I wanted to create a sub-entry, and it didn't exist yet, so I created it at the same time that I linked it. Now here I see a word decision, and I know that that's actually a derivation of the word decide, but I can see that I don't have decide here. So let's try the same thing in the reverse direction. I'll start from the complex form and I'll create the thing that it was derived from. So I will click on this, and then when I go to Lexicon Edit, it should take me directly to that entry. So now I'm in the entry for decision. So now notice we have two fields here. So complex forms is the field we already used, and that meant there's something built out of this one. But there's another field called components. Components means what am I made from? What are the pieces that I came from? And again, in the context of a complex form, it's assuming that those components have their own entry in the database. It doesn't just mean I'm made up of letters or morphemes. It assumes that those components exist in the database, or at least one of them. So I want to tell it that it has a component. Again, I can't just type there. So I have to first click in the field, and then I get the three dots, and then I click on the three dots. And now I can start looking for the entry that I want. I want to decide. And if it were there, then I could, if I were to click OK, it would make the link. But the word that I want is not there, so I need to click on Create in order to make a new entry and make a link. And I could link to either the entry or the sense, but for now I'm just going to stick with entry level. Linking to the sense is a bit more complicated. So I will create this entry. So it's asking me for information about it, and it is a noun. So I'm creating the entry, and I linked it as a component. Now I'm still in the entry that I started in. I'm not in the decide entry. I'm in the decision entry. Now notice that it has filled in the complex form type. This is a field that describes what kind of complex form it is. Now, it's got this not very attractive term, unspecified complex form. This is a placeholder term. It's not really assumed that you would use that for real. It's just a placeholder. But when you see that, the idea is to go click on it and click on the three dots and choose what it really should be. And so in this case, decision is a derivative of decide. Now, don't forget to untick the box for unspecified complex form. It's rare that you would want to have more than one of these boxes ticked. So I will click OK. And so now it is linked. Now, in this case, this one is the complex form. This is the one that's built up. It's more complex. It's built up out of multiple components. And so that's why it's formatted as a minor entry. And if I want to see what the decide entry looks like, I can click on the target in the reference here. And that takes me to the decide entry. And here I can see all of the information, because here it's formatted as a sub-entry. And so in this particular organization, all of the content occurs on the sub-entry, which is the one that's inside the main entry. So those are two ways of creating a complex form. You can create it from the one that's complex or from the one that's the component.